Hi, Frank.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. It's good morning here in Puerto Rico.
Oh, good morning. ¿Cómo está?
Muy bien. ¿Usted? All right. I think we have most people already connected.
Hello, everyone.
Hi. Hi, Jean-Pierre.
Hi, Zoe. Nathalie, Jérôme, Dan, Luc. I'm just asking the Excelias faculty, but Alejandro too, and all other people.
Yeah, everyone's here. Well, thank you for connecting. I think we already have most people connected. And I'm sure other people will start connecting in a couple minutes. We would like to acknowledge the presence of Jean-Pierre Helfer. He's here today from Exilia Business School. With us here today, Natalie Montargot from Exilia as well. Cecile Morris from Sheffield Hallam. Thank you both for helping to put together this roundtable, this new format that we've never tried, but that we'll try today, and hopefully we'll get good results from this. So welcome everyone to the Hospitality Industry Talent Management Challenges Roundtable. This is the fourth event that results from the collaboration between Universidad Ana Geméndez in Puerto Rico, Exilia Business School in France, and Sheffield Hallam University in UK. Before starting today's event, we would like to let you know that we have created a Padlet space so that you can add the topics that you would like to address in future events. So you could just go to the chat, and I think Cecile, you're putting the link right there. Am I right?
Yes, I will in a minute, no problem.
All right. Super. Well, so you can go at any time to the chat and just click on it and add the topics that you would like us to address. We have already talked about sustainability in our first workshop. We talked about value co-creation, about digital tourism, but we definitely would like to have your ideas so that we can address the topics and the issues that are important to you. The purpose of today's roundtable is to open communication channels between the hospitality industry and the academia so that we can perhaps create sound research that can help the hospitality industry find viable solutions. In the case of today's roundtable, we will be highlighting the challenges that our industry is having in finding new talent, especially post-pandemic. We've seen restaurants and hotel operations close or offering less services, not because there's no demand, but because we can't find employees to provide the service. And that is frightening. So in Puerto Rico, we're even seeing fast food chains offering signing bonuses to employees that stay longer than 6 months in their positions. So it's something that we've never seen. So to discuss those issues, we brought here today hospitality industry experts representing Europe, Asia, Africa, and America. We have today with us Frank Sibili, Area Vice President of Hyatt International, Olga Martinez, HR Committee Chair for the Puerto Rico Hotel and Tourism Association and HR Director of El Conquistador Resort, Simon Tedley, Head of Talent at the Delore Group, and I think shortly in just a couple of minutes, we will have Luc Delafose, Vice President of Hospitality at Al COSAMA. On the research side, we have here with us today, Dr. Alicia Ali, and she's representing Sheffield Business School, Sheffield Hallam Business School at UK. Dr. Juan Carlos Sosa from the Universidad Ana Jiménez Division of Business, Tourism and Entrepreneurship, and Dr. Tan Bo Tang, Exilia Business School. We'd like for both researchers and industry leaders to keep their cameras on and their microphones on so that the conversation can flow. As for our audience, you are all welcome to raise your hands during the conversation or post your comments or questions in the chat. Dr. Cecile Morris will be managing the chat and will either feed the questions to our panelists or provide a space for you to share your questions or comments. So with no further ado, I pass the microphone to Dr. Alicia Ali, who will start our conversation today.
Thank you so much, Zoe, and a warm welcome to everyone here. Good morning or good afternoon based on your location. And it's such a pleasure to share this audience with our fellow academics, but also industry representatives to share with us on this really, I would say, significant issue for all of us in managing hospitality talent as we look forward to developing a really sustainable industry. So my first question to our esteemed industry guest is for you to please introduce yourself and also tell us a little bit about your role. And then we would like to know a bit more about the impact that this pandemic has had on your business, but it's also continuing to have on your business as we emerge out of the pandemic. I don't know if there's any volunteers to take the floor first, or shall I ask someone to take the lead first? Do any of you want to start?
Ladies first.
Good morning.
Yes, Olga, please, the floor is yours.
Yes, my name is Olga Judith Martinez. I am the HR director for El Conquistador Resort in Puerto Rico. I'm also the HR committee representative for the Puerto Rico Hotel and Tourism Association. I have been in the hospitality industry for more than 30 years. So.
Thank you, Olga. And before I move over to our other two speakers, do you want to share a little bit with us about what sort of challenges you're facing with the pandemic currently?
Okay, after the pandemic, well, most of the employees that we had during that time were laid off. And then when the business started to open again, then we have to deal with all these protocols, COVID protocols that we have to follow. The restriction that we have, spaces that the employee have to use masks, wash their hands, all those protocols. We have to deal with that, among other things that we will be discussing during today's.
Okay, thank you so much. Mr. Sibile, you want to take the floor next to introduce yourself and tell us how the pandemic has impacted your businesses?
Yes, good morning and good afternoon, everyone. And thank you for inviting me to this roundtable. I am Frank, working for Hyatt International for slightly over now 20 years, and so overall 30 years in the hotel industry. I currently run the hotels in Spain, Morocco, Algeria, and so we have a few coming up in Portugal in the coming years. So actually, to answer the first question, the impact on our business was huge in many ways. I tried to be quick, but we had, of course, a revenue impact affecting Hyatt, our owners, our partners, everyone. We had major human resources impacts on our labor colleagues and the workforce through various layoffs, of course, restructuring, the way we work from home or distance of working, home working, and so forth. I think one of the major impacts we had was to really understand our purpose, what we do, not only serve guests, but as a company. Do we serve the industry? Do we serve the community? and it was maybe a defining moment for us as a company to really put that in place. As we say, we'd like to walk the talk, and that was the time to do so. We had we discovered a lot of solidarity between the teams, the different colleagues, no hierarchy anymore. We were all at the same level, everyone was laid off in a few hotels in my region, and myself included. Spain and France have different government's help. So depending on where you were, you had a very good help or no help. So that was quite difficult for everyone. The impact was also the way we do business. I changed a lot with our guests. Why? Because we had to create new services that we could do, actually, being more creative in terms of delivering foods, delivering laundry, and so forth. So we had new services that we never had before during the pandemic, which allowed some of our colleagues to actually work and get paid. That was quite good. We had a massive impact on our owners. We are a management company for hotels. So if our owners don't have the money and the resources anymore, it's cascades, for refurbishments, openings, paying the staff, suppliers and so forth. So a lot of deals were made with the banks to get some credits, loans, open line, I would say, to spend some money and to pay back the loans, in the coming years. So that was quite a lot of work to actually refinance all our hotels. Of course, the mentality of our owners as well changed, because now they're much more cost conscious. They want to cut salaries. They want to cut a lot of expenses that we had years to put in motion, beforehand. So that was quite that's quite an educational process that needs to rehappen right now in terms of justifying why we need to spend that amount of money, in all our hotels. We had actually a massive impact as well on, and I guess we'll discuss that at length in the coming minutes, but with the workforce. So all our colleagues actually changed the way they work. A lot of them went home. They didn't stay where they were, and we are all mobile, so we live and we work in different cities. They went home, closer to their parents, closer to what we call their security environment, so they could have no cost, basically, no expenses to live on. So then we had our second impact, which is not linked to the COVID, but linked to the Brexit at the same time, where all the international workforce we had from Spain into the UK or from Morocco into the UK went back home. So we're actually happy that I have no issues in Spain or in Morocco to find colleagues yet. So, but my colleagues in other countries do have them, yeah? And then the last, I would say, massive impact was on our clients. They changed the way they travel. They go to closer destinations, and they want to have private accommodations, bungalows, villas, with very, I wouldn't say limited service, but they want to have all the commodities within their own environments, so they are quite secure and protected from the other guests. So that will say in a nutshell the major impacts.
Thank you so much for that, for sharing this. And from listening to what you were saying, I can sense that whilst, and please correct me if my interpretation is incorrect, that whilst the pandemic had brought some challenges for you, also there's been some benefits for the hotels. So being more innovative, being more creative, but also redefining the scope and the purpose of the business. Is that correct in my assessment?
Yes, definitely. I mean, to summarize it, I would say that we had to become more agile somehow in making decisions very quickly, because, I mean, 2 years passed very quickly somehow, but the first 2 weeks we had at the beginning of the pandemic were more like, what are we going to do? We had like an emergency contingency plan, how we're going to run our business with our hotel closed, seeing all the demands of our hotels dropping from 97% in some cities to 0 over the course of 10 days. And then suddenly borders closed, restrictions, and then all these measures that were mentioned before happening. So we had to be very agile in making decisions. And usually colleagues were asking permissions to do this and that. And now you realize that sometimes it's better to let people manage their own way, to get things done quickly.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. And I move over now to Simon. Simon, you want to introduce yourself, tell us what you do, and then share with us how the pandemic has impacted the business.
Absolutely. So yeah, good morning, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for inviting me to be part of the panel. So I'm head of talent for a company called Law Group. We're a relatively newish company to the market. So we own and operate hotels currently across the US, UK, and Europe in Amsterdam. All sort of independent properties that we're really sort of bringing together as a collection now. So we're at the point of ramping up into being a sort of medium-sized business, let's say. So my role really focuses on sort of bringing the talent piece together across all of those businesses. So it's things like employer brand, and obviously looking at the recruitment is obviously the key topic at the moment, because it's where every region is struggling, and there's different issues in each region. I mean, in regards to, so I've been with the business for about 9 months now. So I actually joined after the majority of the pandemic was over, because I myself was impacted by it too, and being made redundant. And I think focusing on the people side of things, and I think the major impact is on that sort of exodus of talent from hospitality. I think what's happened over the pandemic has given a lot of people, or changed their mindset onto a career in hospitality. It's being seen as unstable. It's being seen as an industry at risk of anything coming back. And we're really seeing that damage our sort of attractiveness in getting people into the industry. I think with that change of mindset as well, people have become more focused on their home life, their personal life. And I think flexibility is kind of a key thing that employees in all areas and all industries are looking for at the moment. They all want, I think the pandemic's made them realize what's important to them, and how work is, work to live as opposed to live to work. And that's making us an industry look at ourselves. And this is, again, kind of a good thing in fact, because I think it's a little bit, we should have done this many, many years ago as an industry, is look at ourselves, look at what we do, look at how we treat people, look at what we do for our people, in order to sort of re-emphasize the fact that it is a good industry of choice. It is an amazing career that you can move into. Just touching on what Frank said as well, I think the main thing the pandemic has made us push on ourselves is the adaptability and the agility of ourselves. I mean, obviously, as the two colleagues have said before, the business levels were decimated and we had to have staff layoffs within the business. But now what we're seeing as we're starting to recover is the fact that whatever we forecast for business levels is being surpassed, especially in the UK region. Business is booming. It's coming back very, very quickly, much quicker than we anticipated. And that's obviously having an impact on our recruitment. So where we are struggling to find people, we now think we need more and more people. We need more people than we ever thought we did, and we forecast to what we needed. Similar is happening. Amsterdam and Washington DC are seeing it in a different way. There's still restrictions in place in both those regions. So it's making it challenging to sort of, it's more a case of trying to switch the mindset of recruitment towards being proactive and being looking forward as opposed to being reactive, which I think a lot of the time that's what recruitment has been in hospitality. We have vacancies, we need to fill them now. Now we need to really focus on doing a long-term approach to attract people into the industry as a whole, as opposed to just filling a vacancy that we have right now.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. I think those were very insightful comments in terms of the impact of the pandemic. So, Zoe, do I hand back over to you? Or do I hand back to Dr. Tan to take us through to the next question?
Yes, Dr. Tan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for your participation in this roundtable, and that I think is really interesting. And because it is a conversation between industry leaders and researchers, and I think we can have some insightful insight about the pandemic, about the impact of the pandemic on the industry. And I come from Australia Business School, and now working on a project founded by the Nouvelle Aquitaine region, and this project is about the impact of COVID-19 on human resource management in the hotel industry. So let's talk about human resource policies in the time of COVID-19. So I have a question regarding human resource policy in the time of COVID-19. Because the hospital industry is labor intensive industry, the human capital is really important in the service industry. So I think the question about human resource is really, really important. My question is, what is the current situation for global businesses like yours in terms of recruitment? And I would like to know if you have more difficulties than before COVID-19. So I think lately first, I am moving now to Madam Martinez. Please, if you have the answer about that, please.
Yes, good morning again. Our current situation regarding to recruitment is that we have less job open applicants. We do job fairs frequently, and we only receive a few candidates. And from there, we have to choose which one will be the best fit for the opening. Some of them doesn't have the skills, and we have to deal with that. We have to teach them the skills, and we have to teach them customer service. Most of them doesn't have experience. That will be their first job, but it is very a few candidates. It had been very difficult for us.
Okay, thank you very much. What about your recruitment policy, please, Mr. CB?
Well, thank you. Actually, we haven't changed really our recruitment policy, but what we see in complement to what Ms. Martinez just said is that we see less newcomers into the industry, less new applicants, but when we post a job offer, we have actually people already working in the industry applying to a different position or to a different hotel, just trying to maybe get a better salary, or maybe they want to work for a better company because they had a bad experience during COVID. So we see people moving very quickly, and they started maybe a job in July last year, and then in January, they want to change already. So I think we're going to see these quick changes very, very often, you know, in the months to come, which makes our training and very difficult because we want to have a certain loyalty. You know, I don't say that we're going to have newcomers for a career, a life career, but at least we want them to come for some years. So in terms of policy, I would say that we need to plan more career path for someone than just a job, as Simon was mentioning earlier. If you're a waiter, then do you want to become a director of food and beverage, or are you just a waiter to make money right now? So we need to assess a bit this type of questions when we recruit to really try to fill up find the right candidates.
Okay, thank you very much. But sometimes we can see we can have some differences from in terms of across the national, you know. So, for example, for your country, is a global country. For your company, excuse me, is a global company. Could you observe some differences from country to country or not?
Yes, definitely. I mean, just in our region, as I mentioned earlier, France and UK, they are looking desperately for all type of positions. here in Spain, we have actually a great workforce coming back from the UK and Canada, which is quite good. But I'm sure in the coming month, they will go away again once they get their work permits, back to this country. And then in Morocco, we have some staff. We see that there's a lot of changes from hotels to hotels very quickly, but we have a great workforce pending. Morocco and Africa actually have huge amount of young talents, but we need to create schools and internal, let's say, hotel academies, our own Hyatt Academy, to bring in new people in. So training will be, I would say, in the coming years, our main concern in these emerging countries.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'm moving now to Missy Tetley, please. Could you please give us some answers about my question, please?
Absolutely. I think as the two colleagues have mentioned as well, I think the key situation at the moment is probably more intense than it has been in many years previously. I think the UK has probably been the hardest hit out of all of our regions in regards to finding talent at that sort of entry level position. It is becoming increasingly difficult and increasingly competitive. So you see that the market, take London, for example. I mean, I did a bit of research this morning. There's currently within London, there is near enough 4,000 chef roles advertised on one of the main job boards. So that's 4,000 different positions, not even taking into account how many positions those adverts are actually representing. But yeah, there is an incredible fight for talent, I think, in the other regions. So in Amsterdam, they had a similar impact to Mr. Sibyl, and in the fact that a lot of people were going home, but then Amsterdam was also quite a high percentage of their workforce was from Spain, from Italy, and they all went home during the pandemic. Business levels and restrictions, obviously, that was, for a long time, that was okay, bluntly. They sort of went home and it didn't impact as much. But now that business is ramping up, there is a huge shortage of talent in all of these areas. People as well, as I mentioned before, they're sort of changing their mindsets a little bit. What I've actually experienced, so we've just opened a hotel 4 weeks ago. In my previous role, I opened another hotel during the pandemic, and Laura opened another hotel last year as well. So we've actually I've opened sort of 3 hotels almost during the pandemic. So a lot of interviews, a lot of talking to people. And what I've noticed, there's 2 different ways of thinking. People are scared of moving. A lot of people who are in jobs who have been treated well during the pandemic are scared of moving and less likely to move. So that that transitional job structure has lessened in that aspect, but it's a 50-50 game. So there's also, as Frank was saying, a lot of people who were treated badly during the pandemic by companies. They are now moving jobs much more regularly. They won't take it almost if they don't agree with how they're being treated at work. They will move very quickly, which puts pressure on us to ensure that the training, the onboarding, and that also that we live and breathe the culture that we want to, and we want to deliver to our team. So I think people are becoming it's the 2 trains of thought. I've seen it both. I don't know which one is the higher percentage, but people are either happy staying where they are because they've been treated well and they don't want to risk moving in this unstable environment, or they are much more transactional and they know that they can walk out the door and get a job the same day. So if they don't like what happened to them on that certain day, they will then leave. And I think in regards to what Frank was talking about, attracting people into the industry, we're also seeing the same. There's a lot less people coming in who want to see it as a career as opposed to a sort of a quick job for a couple of weeks while they find something else. So it's about positioning ourselves and getting in front of the right people and sort of trying to tap into a source of people who are career minded and want to develop. And that's why these connections with schools, for example, are so important. And one thing that Law has done in the past, there's not a huge sort of push to those relationships with schools, and we're really trying to drive that forward now with things like a management development program that we'll be launching this year with internships. I mean, our Amsterdam region have phenomenal internships and relationships with the Dutch schools, and that brings a great source of ambitious, talented young individuals into the industry. And then the pressure's on us to really deliver on training and giving them that sort of development they need to see this as a career and to grow into it. And we're now trying to replicate that across the UK and across the US as well, because I think that's going to be a vital factor, is getting these relationships with colleges such as the ones on this call, in sort of reassuring these people that this industry is a phenomenal industry and what their career potentials are by moving into it.
Okay.
I think that was all the points I had. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. I think well, I'm glad to share with you some insight from my research project. Finally, one of the findings of my research project confirm your insight also. Because, for example, in the Vietnamese and Taiwanese context, businesses, especially hotels, witnessing a problem of losing qualified employees, because the situation is really dramatic for the hotel industry. So some qualified employee seek another job. And I think it's a big problem for the hotel industry at the moment. So thank you very much for your insight. Thank you. So I think it's the turn of Juan Carlos. I think so. Oh.
Yes, yes. Thank you very much, Professor Van To. My name is Juan Carlos Sosa. I'm the Dean of the Division of Business, Student Entrepreneurship and Universidad Ana Jiménez in Puerto Rico. And also I'm the Associate Editor of European Business Review, a journal, JCR, from Emerald. And my question is very related to the Professor Van Tambo question, and also is related to some of the comments of Olga, Frank, and Simon, and not only the COVID or the pandemic change the profile of the employees, also as Frank indicates before, the geopolitical changes, and also the industry 4.0 is disrupting this industry. And the question is, has the profiles in terms of skills, abilities of the employees you are looking for changed with the pandemic? And well, and that changed with these geopolitical changes, and if also changed with the changes in technology. Well, for answer this question, we can first with Olga Martinez.
Yes, related to the skill and abilities of the candidates, we are receiving a lot of new candidates. They are really new for the hospitality industry. They doesn't know, they didn't work before in the hotels, and we have invested a lot in customer service training so they can learn how it is.
Sorry, I think the sound is not so good. I don't know if it's my problem, or do you have the same?
No, it's the same. I can't quite hear.
Okay, I was worried.
I'm sorry. I was saying that
it's better. Yeah.
That the new
sorry for the interruption.
That the new candidates, they're new to the hospitality industry, so we have to invest in customer service training, teach them the proper procedures depending on the department that they will be working. So this means that the recruiting process is more expensive for us. The recruiting process is more expensive for us because we have to teach them from scratch what is the hospitality business and how to take care of customers. So practically the candidates that we are receiving, they're new to the industry.
Thanks, Olga. Well, in terms of the changes in technology that affect the service scape of the hospitality industry, the industry requires upskilling, reskilling the actual employees.
Yes, if I may jump in. It depends of which type of hotels or restaurants will be running, but we will see, I guess, a lot of new restaurants in hotels where it will be like serve yourself and basically help yourself take your meal home, you know, It's something that's coming already in the US. So we've seen this fast food chain where, you don't even see one person. You have lockers and you just pay and you grab your meal and you go. It's delivered quite a few times a day, and you don't see any service. I believe this will happen as well in certain type of hotels. We see, as Ms. Martinez said, that newcomers will need a lot of training, that's for sure. But we also, because of technology, will have the chance to work with more technology savvy employees in the coming months and years. All the youngsters right now, they all, I would say, computer literates. They know how to use a computer. I mean, from they were born with it. So I guess we'll go much faster in a lot of aspects. And where we'll have to spend more time is on customer service, communication skills, and behavior towards clients, basically on basic service.
And Frank, you mentioned before that many organizations needs more agile decisions, and
correct.
And how the organizational agility affect the skills or abilities. Because in many cases during the COVID-19, as you mentioned before, and also I think that Olga and Simon mentioned, the business model changed during this pandemic period.
Correct.
This affect the abilities, the skills of the current employees?
Yeah, I think the way we do business will change. Our hotel industry has always been a vertical, hierarchical, I would say, industry. You have a general manager, and then you have department heads, and then you have managers, and then you have assistant managers, all the way to line staff. And I guess now we will work more on guests' concern and issues, let's say on service, where it will be more like a rounds team, where employees from food and beverage or rooms will be dedicated to serve the clients, not without having one specific manager. The manager will be part of the circle to solve an issue. It might be the most senior person, but he will not only have I would say, a hierarchical status to lead only 5 F&B waiter, or a team leader in front office will only lead front office. It will be more like a service-specific issue that will combine all these type of services. And we'll have less managers, of course, because we have less candidates as well. So we'll have to restructure. And this is, like, for me, is a very good point, because we will work much faster. Decisions will be made by the team itself. It's like a pod structure, if I may say so,
Thanks, Frank. And Simon, the skills and the abilities of the employee you are looking for.
So I think, from my perspective, I mean, I wouldn't say the skills and abilities that we look for in particular have changed. I think it's much more a case of we have had to change what we are open to. I mean, the previous companies that I were in were very sort of focused on luxury 5-star. So again, you have a very specific criteria in regards to experience that you want to bring into your team. One thing that obviously this talent shortage has made us realize that we need to, as a business, be more open-minded into who has potential within hospitality. And again, as Olga and Frank were saying, we need to sort of train them and develop them and give them, it's down to us to give them that training to make them successful in the industry. I mean, we're sort of broadening our, where we're looking. I mean, some of the best people we have in our business didn't intend to go into hospitality. They came from art colleges, drama colleges, any of the colleges nearby, and they sort of pick it up as a part-time job without the experience. And then they fall in love with it at that point and then develop up. So I think it's much more, while we still need a similar skills, similar values, similar attributes of the people coming into the business, I think it's down to us to open our eyes a little wider and see who has the potential to be trained and developed. So I think that's where it's sort of looked. And I think what we focus on in this business is very much on, it's a bit of a cliche, but you say you hire for the attitude, not for the skills. But it's really within the sort of culture in each of our different hotels, it's identifying those key personality attributes or those key characteristics that people can have that will make up for the lacking skill. We can train the skill. That's our job as managers, is to deliver the training, to give them the skills to serve how we want them to, or to give the sort of experience that we want them to deliver. And this talent shortage is proof that that is what everybody needs to do more. It's open your eyes more, focus on the training side, focus on the development side, and then bring in more people into that industry. It gives them more opportunities to develop themselves, and it's one of those industries that's always been seen as a sort of secondary job, part-time job, or I'll pick up a few extra hours in a restaurant. But that's a good source. Those people will then potentially fall in love with the industry if we train them and develop them correctly. So like I say, just to come back to it, I don't think it's a change in our requirements as such. I wouldn't say COVID has. I think maybe more so for the empathy and the understanding. That's one value we need to make sure our team has. But yeah, I think it's much more a case of seeing the benefit of people's other values and skills that they have that can be transitioned into the industry better.
Thanks. Thanks, Simon. Well, the next question will be in charge of Alicia Ali. Alicia.
Thank you so much, Juan Carlos. So listening to our industry panelists speak, you've already started to identify a lot of the challenges you're encountering with the talent shortages, and you started to signal some of the things you're doing. So looking at extending the relationship with hospitality schools, as well as training is quite heavily emphasized. But I just wondered if you can share a bit more with us some of the other things you are doing differently after the pandemic to find the talent that your organization needs to find, but also to retain. So if I can come to you first, Simon, you want to kick us off with that question?
Yeah, of course. I mean, in regards to the different things we're trying to find people, I think anything and everything bluntly at the moment, because of the volumes of people that we need. But we are trying to tap into, I mean, I'm a huge believer that recruitment in general is no longer an HR job, it is a marketing job. Our role is about really sort of identifying what is the EVP of the business, why would people want to work for this business, why do people work for the business, and then it's about portraying that across into the market. I mean, there's the whole reactive approach to recruitment, which is obviously your advertising, etc. But we're trying to transition the teams into being more proactive in the way they think about it. So social media is a huge influence in this. I mean, when it comes to advertising and recruiting, we need to start looking at bigger tech industries, looking at the way that other industries do it. I've been talking to a few employer brand agencies in the way that you need to follow that standard marketing path of drip feeding information. We need to shout about why people want to work in the business, not just posting out adverts all the time, but talk about your business, talk about what it's like to be an employee within that business. That way you sort of drip feed a bit of interest, so they see it, they become aware of it, especially for a company like ours, which is not well known. We're not we're not like a Marriott or a Hilton, which is worldwide known. So using social media, especially to attract the younger employees, like TikTok. I mean, I have no idea how to use TikTok, but I think pretty much everyone under the age of 25 is on TikTok now. So how can we tap into that? How can we get ourselves present on that without diluting the sort of consumer-faced marketing work that's going on? We need to then almost do a separate strain of employer branding, social media recruiting. So I think that is one thing that I'm focusing on at the moment, is trying to create, develop, and sort of push that out to get more of an awareness in the market. But again, back to my point of, it's not just about posting jobs, it's about talking about success stories. It's about talking about the benefits. I mean, people have there's a lot of press on long hours, low pay, but then people forget the social development, the sort of building of confidence, the fun that you can have in hospitality, all of these elements that make it a great industry to work in, that are not shouted about. They're sort of drowned out by the media talking about, obviously, especially over the last 2 years, layoffs, about long hours, about low pay, about all of these factors. So it's almost, we need to sort of combat that and shout more in the market about that specifically. Sorry, what was the other part of your question?
No, it was what have you done before, but also what you're doing after the pandemic in terms of finding the talent you need. But you've already answered most of it.
Okay, good.
Simon, yeah. But I want to just pick up the point in terms of, you say it's a marketing exercise. So has the pandemic, from your perspective in terms of finding talent, cause you to really consider what is the value proposition you're offering to potential employees and the current employees that you have? So, you know, as a business, you would see a value proposition to your consumers, but now are you digging deeper into what is your value proposition for staff and getting those messages out?
Absolutely. I think it's one of the most important things that we can do, because again, if and it's not over only identifying it, it's making sure that you're actually living it as well. Again, the interesting thing about our hotels is because we're not a brand or a chain, so they're all very different inside. The teams are all different, the culture is different in each hotel. But we'll take one example, which is Sea Containers in central London. It's a huge hotel. It's 358 rooms. It's very much a sort of nightlife hotel, very busy, very vibrant, and they have a great fun culture to their team. We're not a sort of corporate formal hotel by any means. We want the team to have fun. We want the team to be engaged. However, you look at the sort of advertising, for example, that was done previously. At no point did it mention that. At no point was there any information about why would you want to work here. And I think it's going to be the key thing if we're going to start attracting more people into the industry as a whole, not only to our specific jobs. We need to get that word out there that this is the reason why hospitality is good to work in. And it is about, I mean, I'm a prime example myself. I think I studied at Hallam and I graduated from Hallam back in 2011. And back in those days, I was a very shy individual. I wasn't very socially aware. I struggled to be talking in big rooms, etc. But I did my graduate scheme in the US with Marriott, and it gave me a load of, it's my personal development. It built my confidence. It built my ambitions. And it's those elements that by throwing yourself into hospitality, where you've got to talk to people every day, it's personal development. It's not just career development. And these are the things that we need to sort of talk about as an industry.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Simon. Frank, if I can also ask you, from your perspective, what are the sort of other type of practices you're adopting to help you keep attracting talent?
Well, I would like just to bounce back on what just Simon said. And I think the key word for me was employer branding. I think we do that for our guests, you know, we communicate that in the market, but we never did actually communicate properly what the brand represents for our colleagues and staff and future recruits. And I think this is the key, and this is the real focus right now in all the departments, not only the HR departments, but the marketing department, the service, the different operational departments as well, and how we can really put together the message in the market that our culture is like this. This is what we want to do. This is the way we do talent acquisition. This is the way we do training. This is the way we have our colleague experience, you know, what we want you guys to experience once you join in. Talent management, what is our position on diversity? I put some notes, inclusion and equity as well, you know, so it's very clear so people can join in and they know what to expect, because it's a show, you know, our industry. So you're on stage basically 24/7. What is our position on well-being as well? What do we offer? So as Simon said, it should be fun. It should be healthy to work in our industry. And we started in the industry 30 years ago, and I enjoyed it a lot, believe me, but I don't say it was very healthy. So I think today, our new recruits will never do what we did in those days.
So do you think now there's a greater focus on well-being also?
Oh, definitely. And I think the well-being and the wellness components helped a lot throughout the pandemic. The company to survive and to bounce back much stronger, actually. You know, we provide our 8 Space membership to all our employees, for example, you know, so they could do meditation, yoga, and so forth. So there are a lot of tools that can be provided to our employees, even on site, to really, I mean, be themselves today, not like the way we wanted them to be 30 years ago, especially in the luxury hotel industry, where we're very stiff, you know, in the way we do our policies, the way we work. I mean, I see Simon's laughing, but it is true. We have to adjust slightly and be more relaxed and serving, I mean, even luxury, you know, high-end customers.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that, Frank. And Olga, what are your thoughts in terms of what sort of measures you're taking to attract and retain talent?
We have been more flexible in terms of the scheduling. Some of the new candidates that we have, most of the studies, or they have to take care of their family members because of the COVID, because they don't want to expose them. If they have children, they don't want to expose them to care, or they have an elderly family, they don't want to bring them to the elderly homes. So a lot of them are asking for flexible time. So we are trying to work around that. Probably we have to lower the schedules, the hours that they work. The mostly that.
Fantastic.
Mhm.
Can I just add on
yep.
to that as well?
Yes,
So
please.
just to go a little further on Olga's point, because I think one thing, because I agree, we're obviously having to do the same thing as well, but what's been a challenge with that is getting managers to realize that, and managers who previously, HODs who want everyone full time so they can do their scheduling and their rotas correctly to cover the hours needed. We need to change their mindsets of the fact that, okay, so if you need 5 full-time waiters, why can that not be 10, 20-hour waiters who have other priorities, whether it be college, whether it be looking after their family? But that's the biggest challenge. I think it's getting the HODs buy-in in that what they want for their team and their rotas is not necessarily what they're going to get nowadays. And they need to have that flexibility. So that's definitely, I think, a huge challenge, is getting that level. People who've been in the industry for a long time, doing it their own way for many, many years, changing their mindset to the flexibility.
Fantastic. And just one quick question. The talent shortage that we're currently experiencing, is the talent shortage in a particular level of employees, or is it, for example, is the talent shortage in terms of leadership or line level, or is it a general talent shortage that we're seeing in the industry?
I think, just to jump in on that point, I think it is a mix. It's predominantly that sort of entry level, I would say, that sort of frontline worker that is a huge shortage. But again, it comes back to my previous point. I think when you are looking for managers, people, depending on how they've been treated, a lot of people, like the good quality ones that you really want, if they've been treated well, they're less likely to move. We had an incident with opening one of the new properties, and we were recruiting for a head chef for the restaurant to run the restaurant. And we spoke to a lot of incredible head chefs who didn't want to move because they were scared of building their own teams, were scared of starting from scratch, because they're aware of what's going on in the market. So they are sort of, there's a fear, because the awareness of the talent shortage makes people, if they're happy where they are and they're comfortable, they're less likely to move. So from the senior side as well, there is not necessarily a shortage to the same extent as the frontline workers, but definitely more of a challenging time to get those people into your business.
Okay, fantastic. Olga, any thoughts on this? Do you think the talent shortage is in a particular group of employees?
Both. It is
Okay.
a mix.
Yeah. And Frank?
I would say main focus is food and beverage, waiters and chefs. I think to be a chef tomorrow will be a great career. A lot of opportunities to work everywhere. And we have, open positions all the way to director of operations, resident managers. So even the top jobs are needed as well. So, but chefs definitely.
Okay. So thank you all for sharing that. I will hand over back to Dr. Tan to take us through the next question.
I think it's in the turn of
Dr. Sosa.
We will read it to Dr. Sosa now. I think a question or a hand, Richard, wanted to share something before we move to?
Yeah, just in terms of the idea of talent management, is I'm interested. We have this idea is that our staff should be living the brand. Do you think that we are doing enough as an industry in terms of a PR exercise to actually say, this is a place that you should work, that you should send your children to work? Because what I find is interesting is that there is so much gone on in the industry to try and change the behaviors within the sector. But the problem is, for me, is that if something does go wrong, then that's what comes up in the newspapers. So all of the PR work that we do around professionalization of the industry becomes lost. So do you think we should be doing something a little more coherent in actually changing people's perception of the industry?
Yes, bluntly, I think that there's a lot more that I think could be done. I think that the industry, as you say, it's had years and years of being known as this sort of long hours, low pay industry. And I think, there's something going on in London, Hospitality Rising, which I've seen going around a bit, which is a more sort of mass approach to marketing in a similar way that the British Army do on UK TV. There's a whole traditional marketing campaign on television adverts, which is something that the industry would never do because of the cost. So no individual business will spend the money needed to do mass broadcasting of hospitality careers, but there's a sort of collaborative approach now appearing in which they're asking for investment from hospitality businesses to sort of try and get a more traditional marketing approach, whether it be TV, radio, newspapers, to reach a wider audience about the benefits of the industry as a whole. So I think there is a lot more. I mean, I don't have an answer of what we should be doing, but there's definitely a time for everyone to come together and shout about getting people into it as a whole, as opposed to their individual businesses. But obviously it's a challenging thing to do, basically.
Yeah, I also think that all the hotels and the chains and the restaurants will have to change their labor practice somehow, in terms of split shifts, in terms of having 2 consecutive days off, respecting the shifts, reducing overtime. I mean, we'll have to adapt, you know, if you want people to stay in our industry. So I think it's coming already, but this will go even faster, I believe, in the years to come. And I'm sure that we will bounce back stronger, because everyone needs to eat and go to restaurants and socialize and have fun. So I think we'll be much stronger than before. And because we are in the service industry, I think we're more creative than a lot of industries. So I think we'll go faster as well in recovering. So I see it not only in the pessimist approach, but I think there are some great years to come.
Yeah, I think you're right. Thank you.
Okay, so maybe Dr. Sousa now?
Yes.
Paul, look, I know you raised your hand, but all the remarks and comments, we will maybe group everything and we will discuss the remarks just after. If you just go ahead, Dr. Sousa.
Well, thanks. This is the last question of the panel, and then move to the question of the people that attend to this conference. And the question is, how can the hospitality industry and the academia collaborate to find solutions to this post-pandemic issue? And also in terms of the changes, mainly in the technology changes that are part of the Industry 4.0. Simon?
Sorry, could you repeat? So the second part of the question. So
well,
the first question was how can we?
Is how the hospitality industry and the academia collaborate to find solutions to this post-pandemic issue.
I think one of the main things that we can do is really sort of push the collaborative approach to getting people into the industry. To be honest, I think there's one thing that I've seen in the past when you're sort of working with schools is a lot of the graduates that come out of hospitality schools are very specifically focused on getting into more support functions, whether it be sales, marketing, PR, development. So a lot of the students that are sort of studying hospitality are then leaving school more focused on sort of stepping away from the actual operation, if that makes sense. I think one of the main points to make, I think, is really sort of support us in selling the industry and what the benefits of working in the industry. I know there's a lot of extra things that they learn within their time in college, but I think mainly just support us in selling the positives, bluntly.
Yes.
I think one way to collaborate more is that the university curriculum courses related, they give curriculum courses related to customer service, sequence of service for different departments such as housekeeping, food and beverage, front desk, in order that they that these students understand the hospitality business when joining the workforce. Also, we had to collaborate with university to give the opportunity to those students to do the internships in our hotels, so they can And so we can teach them the hospitality related aspects.
Thanks, Olga.
Yeah,
Frank.
absolutely. Training and traineeship, I think, is the key for in your business, sending new recruits to our business. And maybe one thing that we need to change is to have more and more paid internships for the basic line staff employees. Usually they do maybe a 4-year program, and year 1, 2, 3 they are unpaid trainees, and then maybe on year 4 they get a traineeship in marketing and in sales or in finance, where they get $100. I mean, maybe I'm exaggerating, but that's usually the way it works. So maybe we'll have more and more paid internships. It's not good for our bottom line, but I guess if you want to create new opportunities, we'll have to change as well the way we recruit and the way we present ourselves, into the industry.
Thanks, Frank, Olga, and Simon. Well, we are going to the Q&A session, and the moderator will be Cecile Morris.
What a fantastic discussion. I've got plenty of questions myself, but of course I'm not going to abuse my position and having the mic to start asking lots of questions, but if I have the time, I will towards the end. Right, so we had, starting with David asking about the shortage of labor that was discussed right at the start of the conversation, shortage of labor and having to reduce the costs to bounce back from the pandemic and adapt. As that resulted in an increase in outsourcing services. Have you used more flexible workforce or other businesses to support your businesses? I don't know if there's anybody who wants to jump in on that.
I'm happy to go first with that. I mean, one thing that, because of that talent shortage, we are having to rely a lot on sort of external sources of staff. However, it doesn't help us with the cost in any way, because obviously it's extortionate. But I think it's interesting to see how the industry's always needed to use the sort of temp agency side of things and external suppliers to help fill our restaurants with staff. But even they are struggling at the moment. That's one thing I've noticed. Even I've talked to many agencies who you ask for support with certain areas, and even they can't even supply people to help us. So while yes, we're having to rely heavily on it, it's not really resolving the issue, and obviously it doesn't really help us from a cost perspective because it's extortionate.
Thank you. I don't know, Olga or Frank, if you want to come in with any of this.
In relation to the temporary agency, they don't have employees. They don't have candidates. They are the same as us. They are in the same situation. So it is difficult.
Yeah, we will find, however, some more, I would say, qualified staff through certain agencies. Could be concierge, could be marketing, sales, because they were laid off during the pandemic. They created their own business, and now they serve 3 or 4 or 5 clients instead of 1. They get more money, and this is, I think, a new way of also doing business within our hotels. That maybe the concierge behind the desk is not yours, but outsourced because he works for his own company or with a partner or with a few other colleagues, and they created their own network. Same in marketing and sales. I think we will outsource more and more certain services that were done in-house before. And I guess we'll find great talents there. So we have to be maybe more open-minded as well there.
Okay, that's very interesting. That's one for us to build into our curriculum to really embed that sort of concept and emerging trends into our teaching. Thanks a lot. Emily had put questions around the different levels of roles, but I think we've probably covered that. So I'll go next to the next question that we had from Zoe. How can academia be better prepared to train those new employees so that hotels do not need to spend that much in that area? So specifically for hotels, what can academia be doing to support the training? So Olga, you had started saying, working together to provide internships. So for example, is there any other things that we can do to train students?
Yes, and as I mentioned, also to keep giving courses related to customer service. That's very important, and the sequence of service for specific departments.
That's interesting because we often are thinking, what should we be doing? Should we be having courses that are specific to hospitality business management, or should we have international business or business management with, you know, some hospitality modules? But clearly what you're indicating is that your needs are better served with a specific hospitality business management courses.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's great. So Zoe was also asking which specific skills are key to provide a great service these days. And I'll tag on one of my questions to that. You know, you mentioned, I think Simon mentioned that you needed to pick somebody for the attitudes that they had rather than their specific skills. So that there's a little bit around, you know, tension around the specific skills that they need and the sort of attitudes that they need. How do you test for skills or attitudes when you're trying to recruit someone? How do you assess those, whether they've got the right skills or the right attitude?
I think one thing I do want to add to point to the previous question as well. So while it's in my mind as well, but on that one, I think a lot of it, obviously you have competency-based interview questions, which are examples, but they could also be priorly learned. It's tough to do in an interview. It is very tough to sort of highlight what somebody's attitude or personality is like during an interview. We don't do formal interviews, sort of question 1, question 2, question 3. We like to interview as more of a conversation. And then there is the age-old trial shifts, but I think trial shifts can often be done very badly, bluntly. And I think trial shifts are something that people see as, oh, it's unpaid labor, it's all of this. But I think trial shifts are important to give somebody, not to make them do the work, not to make them sit and serve tables and serve guests, but put them into a team, put them into the team and see how they interact. That is really the only way, is to see them in that scenario. It's putting them in. We encourage our people to do, when they offer the trial shift, they say you won't be doing physical work as such. You'll be with the team, you'll be on the floor, you'll be shadowing, you'll talk to a couple of guests and you'll be talking to the team. And then it's getting teams feedback. If you've got a good, strong team that you'll be adding into, they'll be the best judge of how that person's personality and attitude fits in. And it's one of those things that it's also, at the risk of being very blunt, it's also the reason that the probation periods are in place, because sometimes we make mistakes, and because it is an intangible thing to find. It's not a sort of, are you qualified in this? It's much more about a sort of personality trait. It's about being decisive in, if that's the wrong fit, have that honest conversation early on, before it becomes detrimental to your team. And then also, sorry, just to add on to the point previously about academia, what else they can do. One thing that came to mind was that we're seeing a lot of students struggle with when they come out. Obviously, the graduates would love to get onto fast track management programs and develop them into managers of the future. One thing that I'm noticing a lot of them lack is sort of the man management knowledge, the training in how to manage people, almost the psychology of it, and psychometrics, and how to read people and how to adapt management skills to dealing with different scenarios. And I think that's something that a lot of people struggle with initially, especially when they're sort of young, early stage managers, is how do you deal with somebody who's been a career waiter for 30 years, who knows what they're doing, is very competent and comfortable and cocky almost. How do you get then a 22-year-old manager to manage that person? And it takes a lot of training for somebody to get the confidence and understanding of how to approach it. And that's something that we do internally with psychometrics and all those sort of things, but it would definitely help within academia for that to be a focus too.
That's very interesting, and clearly right now we are redesigning completely our curriculum. So we may very well look at how, you know, we've been thinking along those lines, but we'll pick your brain a little bit further outside of this forum. Is there anybody else who wants to, I don't know, Olga or Frank, if you wanted to add something to this?
Well, just to add a comment on what Simon just said, interviewing is very difficult, and we're never 100% right or 100% wrong. But usually you have one person interviewing, and then if there is someone else you should interview, then it's always on one level up. During the pandemic, I actually had a chance to participate in some interviews where actually the managers were actually recruiting their boss. So of course you had the big boss defining the competencies that were needed, but choosing between the candidates were in the last three, in the shortlist. They were through interviews with the rest of the team, which I've never seen before, which was quite interesting actually to see a food and beverage director, interviewing somehow his future director of operations, on top. And I found this very interesting because there is nothing worse than a bad boss. So we all want to have a great boss above us. And I think this may be one of the key components to change the mentality within our industries. We had a lot of very mediocre managers that block, very great talents and that leave the industry because they cannot move up. So I think that sometimes we need to change the way we recruit as well.
That's good to hear. We actually doing that for managers as well at Halam. We get a formal panel and we get an informal panel with a range of grades on that panel. Right, so time is running away. We've only got a few minutes left, so I probably won't be able to ask all the questions that are in the chat, but I will circulate. I will put a link into the chat where you can put your contact details that we can then share across everyone who's interested to carry on that conversation outside of this meeting. Emily had put another question that was linking more towards the government initiatives and support. Frank, you did mention that having businesses across different countries and having very different support from governments in those countries had a different impact on your business. And Emily was specifically asking, does anyone have a view on positive ways governments have supported the industry and also support you would like to see from governments going forward? Is there anybody who wants to comment on that one?
Well, in Spain, there is a minimum compensation during the pandemic that was in place and I guess will be in place for any future events. But in Morocco it's very different. Private hotels laid off nearly everyone, especially in Marrakesh, that was 100% linked to tourism. All the hotels were closed and people had no jobs and left the city back to their home cities. And government-owned hotels paid their employees 100% during the entire pandemic. So I guess there were two different speeds of depending on where you were working, you were lucky or not, to survive during the pandemic. But what countries could do in the future is to make sure that there are minimum wages or minimum security in these type of countries, so Algeria, Morocco, and of course, all the emerging markets in Africa. I think Africa is booming and there is no social security whatsoever in any of those countries, and no minimum wages. I mean, if there is a big pandemic like this. So this needs to be implemented step by step, like in the rest of Europe, but it will take time and we need to go through this crisis to realize that.
Thanks a lot. I think we probably have time maybe for just another comment or one final question. So Leading had asked, what's the starting point you consider as enter into the industry? Is that from high school graduates choosing the hospitality educational program or from the job applicants who look for the first full-time job in the industry?
So is that, just to clarify, so are you looking for at what point people are seen as entry level into the industry?
I think that's how I understand the question, but Lee, if you want to come in and tell us if that's not what you were expecting.
Yes, there we go. Can you hear from me?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, let me clarify my question. So these days I'm doing the study for the employer's branding and attractiveness. So I'd like to find the sample to do the interview or the group study. So I'm wondering if I want to know how important to improve the employer branding. So what's our sample? So should we get the opinions or perceptions from the students in the program so far, or for example, the business school students. So who probably will choose our industry in the future when they are looking for the first full-time job. So because the students in our program during the 3 years or 4 years, most of them will take several internships. So should we consider their starting point with the entry-level job inside of the program or after they graduate?
I think, if I understand the question correctly, I think if you, especially if you're doing research onto it, I think you should take all, just because that's the good thing about hospitality. An entry-level job can be for a school leaver, it can be for somebody changing industry, it can be for a graduate or a master's student. It's always people moving into the industry. There'll be different ambitions and potentially coming in at different levels. But I think if your research is on the employer brand, the important thing will be to see how each of those people see the industry, because it could be different results. And that will definitely help us as employers obviously work on our employer branding to attract those people, because they're all beneficial to the industry. We want to attract them all in. They all have different benefits and at different levels, which is a master's student looking for quick progression or into a more strategic position, or if it's somebody changing industry and wanting a sort of more stable position, then we want to understand how we are seen from all of those positions. So I wouldn't target one specific. I'd go for all of them, especially if you're collating research on it.
All right, thank you for your answer.
If I may just add, I fully agree on what Simon just said, and we'll have a new workforce coming up. Is people who are getting on retirements as well, joining back line staff job, not just to make money, but for the fun of it, to communicate with people, and we've seen this more and more, and they're very qualified and they're quite fun to work with as well.
Thank you.
Right, so I think that's all the time we have got for questions. I'm really sorry that I didn't get around to asking all the questions that we had in the chat. But I think it's time now to hand over to Natalie for the closing remarks.
Okay, so here we go. Just thank you everyone for your participation first. And we got the idea of this roundtable grouping researchers and industry leaders while we were preparing a next workshop. And it turned into a roundtable because we talked, Zoe, Cecile, and I, about the issues of the hospitality industry, and we were comparing 3 countries. So we agreed on the fact that the pandemic has exacerbated the tense staffing situation and the HR challenge in the industry. So we have seen today that there were some similarities at the level of the staff recruitment, of the fight for talent, of the staff retention. And we agreed on the fact that many employees have departed. And the question is, would we be able to get them back, attract them back? Is it possible, and how? And we also talked about a lot of topics during this roundtable: digitalization, skills, hard skills, soft skills, new trends in the industry, and which impact for which stakeholders. Because as we have seen in the beginning of the roundtable, maybe the stakeholders, they have different purposes, different goals. How can we deal with all these different perceptions? Now we have done this roundtable. What can we do at the level of teaching, and what the organizations, hospitality organization, and the managers could do at the level of human resource management? We spoke about agility, flexibility, adaptability, and also about practices. Which best practices could we disseminate to help the industry recover from this troubled period? We also, but briefly, talked about the integrating or outsourcing services, maybe a new trend which would be interesting to conduct research on. So what can we do together now, industry leaders and researchers, that could improve the attractiveness of the sector, attractiveness of the jobs and the careers. So a lot of interesting remarks have been made. If you see interest in continuing the discussion, I saw Cecile that in the comment section put a link where you can maybe exchange your contact information. And we have, Cecile, you put a Google form, I think so. Everybody can use it to continue the discussion. And also, if you have any idea regarding the new topics we could explore in the during the next semester, you have a link, padlet.com. Maybe Cecile, you could just put it another time because it was just at the beginning of the discussion. And just to inform you that the next workshop or roundtable, the next event, will take place on the 30th of November. So not pretty soon, but we'll have time to study and compose a panel of guest speakers from the industry, from the research. And I think it will be really interesting, as it was interesting today. So we hope you enjoyed this new format of collaboration between our institutions, the researchers, and the managers of the hospitality industry. And I wish you all the best for each of you, and thank you again for participating.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Okay, so
Thank you, everyone.